नबीना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला नबीना सल्ले अला सल्ले अला हबीबना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन बलगल उला बिकमालिही कशफ़द दुजा बिजमालिही बलगल उला बिकमालिही कशफ़द दुजा बिजमालिही हसन जमीओ खिसालिही सल्लु अलैहि वालिही सल्ले अला नबीना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला नबीना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला हबीबना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला इमामिना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला नबीना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला हबीबना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला रहीमिना सल्ले अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Like I told you in the previous sermon, today I'll be talking about what happened with the Persians during the era of Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq. There is a battle called the Battle of Salasil or Battle of Kadhib. It took place in the 12th year of Hijrah, and it is known by three names. It is Hadith al-Asr, the Battle of Qazm, and the Battle of Hafir. It is also known as that Salasil, or the Battle of Chains and Shackles, because in Arab, the chain, because it's got so many circles, it is called, as we know, chain and shackles. They're almost similar. And many people were, the Iranians, apprehended, rather they tied each other with chains so that no one runs away. That's why it is known by this name. And other historians, they don't agree with this. This battle took place between the Muslims and the enemy at a place called Kazma. And that's why it is known as the Battle of Kazma, because of the place where it took place. Kazma, it is on the way to Bahrain, and it's a village on the way to Bahrain. And because it was a confined place, it is known as a Battle of at a confined place. The commander-in-chief from the Muslims was Khalid, and Khurms was the commander-in-chief from the enemy's side. The number of Muslims was around 18,000 army. And like I told you in the previous sermon, Khurms was the head, was the leader of this area. And he was ahead of so many leaders within the Persian leadership. And the leaders used to put on a special heart. And according to the status, according to the social status, the bigger the person was, the bigger the heart and the design and the price of the hat they used to wear. And they say that the cheapest could be, which was 100,000 dirham. And that was the average price for such hats, which were used to be worn then. And Khurms could be judged according to the hats he used to wear. And it is said he used to wear a hat which was over 100 or around 100,000 dirhams. And of course, he was down looked upon because he was very harsh against the Muslim Arabs. And even the non-Arabs, they did not like him that much. And even they used to use it as a derogatory name for anybody. And they would say that you are worse than Khurms, or you are as bad as Khurms, or he is as bad as Khurms in misery and not giving. And Khurms used to pursue the Arabs in different areas. And he did not only attack the Arabs, but rather he also extended his attacks to the Indians as well. Nevertheless, Hazrat Khalid, before leaving for Yamama, he wrote to Khurms and he said, Amma ba'ad, if you obey then you'll be protected. Or or you take the charge of giving taxes. Otherwise, you'll regret, because I've brought an army against you, which loves death more than you love your life. And when this letter of Khalid reached Hormuz, then he informed Caesar about this, and then they gathered an army to fight against the Muslims. And then they were ready to attack Hazrat Khalid at a place called Kazma. And when they didn't find Hazrat Khalid at that place, then they received an army that the Muslims are gathering at a place called Hafir. Then they left that place to Hafir. And Hafir, as you go towards Mecca from Basra, that is one of the places you get to. And Hormuz appointed certain battalions. One was Khubas and another one was Anoshur Ilan. And then the Iranians, they tied themselves in chains, as I've already talked about this. And for those who are against this war, then they said, you are now even tying yourself against the enemy. This is a bad omen for you. And then those who are supportive of fighting this way, they said that it is because you think that we want to run away. And then when Hazrat Khalid heard of this, the discord between them, he moved his army towards the enemy, towards Kazma. And then he camped at that place. Then Hormuz, they got ready for the battle. And then they took hold of the water area. And then when Hazrat Khalid arrived, he had to camp at a place where there was no water. And then the Muslims complained. The people complained, and then someone announced. And then he said, we have to camp here. And then he said, water will be in hands of that group which will be stronger or which will remain steadfast, and Allah will grant us that victory. And then they remained there. Then they started fighting the enemy, and they attacked the enemy, and the battle started from both sides, and Allah sent the enemy, sent the rain. And then Hormuz had plotted against Hazrat Khalid, and he told the Muslims that I invite Khalid to fight me one-on-one. And then this plot was that if I invite him and he comes, then you have to attack him in secret. Then Hazrat Khalid arrived. He came down from his horse, and Hormuz also came down from his horse, and they wanted to have a duel. And then Hazrat Khalid advanced, and then they started fighting. And immediately as they started fighting, then Khalid overpowered Hormuz. And as this happens, we don't allow others to intervene when it is a duel. But then, this was happening, some people from Hormuz tried to attack because Hazrat Khalid was overcoming him, but Hazrat Khalid managed to overcome Hormuz. And of course, even the Arabs, the Muslims, they attacked the Hormuz army, and they overcame the enemy, and they killed them. The Muslims, throughout the night, they pursued the enemy, and also they went as far as Basra, across the Euphrates river. And in this way, they came in control of the water, and also they collected a lot of bounties and a lot of chains, which was almost about a ton, which was over 1,000 kgs. The bounties, which was sent to Hazrat Khalid, was that hat of Khurms, which was over 100,000 dirham. And Hazrat Abu Bakr, when he received this, the bounties, he took the heart and gave it to Hazrat Khalid. And Hazrat Khalid divided the fifth out of the bounties to Medina and some camels. Zunt bil Khuraim took the camels and the fifth out of the bounties towards Medina. The Medina, they had never seen elephants. And when the elephants were taken to Medina, showing people those tamed elephants, and even the ladies were astonished, and they said, what is this, what we are seeing? Is it one of Allah's creation? And then Hazrat Abu Bakr sent this camel back to Hazrat Khalid, where it came from. And the reason why the Muslims overcame the enemy was simply because Hazrat Abu Bakr had devised in order to help the Iranians. There was a policy which was started by Hazrat Abu Bakr and supported the people who were farmers. He said you should leave them in their farms, and then he did not take any tax from them. There was no taxation for some people in that area, and this helped that the Muslims were supported in that area. And for that reason, the people in that area, they received a third of the wealth out of the bounties. This battle opened the eyes of the Muslims, who used to hear that the Persians are very strong, but even a big army which they had organized against the Muslims could not win a small army of the Muslims. There's also another battle which is known as Ubulla, the Battle of Ubulla, which was fought in the 11th year of Hijr. And then Hazrat Khalid had suggested that they should start from Ubla, which was near the borders. And the caravan, which used to come from the east, from India and the eastern areas, it would arrive in Ubulla first. It is known as Ubulla. The reason why the Muslim took it, it was during the time of Hazrat Abu Bakr when the Muslim took control of this place. Then the Persians took control of this place, and then afterwards, the Arabs took control again. Tabri has covered this, and he talks about this Battle of Hubla, and he writes that after the era of Hazrat Abu Bakr, Abulla, this place, according to the historians, it is against some historians and their narrative that Hubla was under the hand of Utbah, was conquered during the time of Hazrat Umar. And also in other historians, they are taking it to be in the time of Hazrat Abu Bakr, and others, they reject this. And they say this battle did not take place in the Battle of Hazrat Abu Bakr. But when we see in the books of history, the Battle of Ubulla is either put in the time of Hazrat Abu Bakr or the time of Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. It might have happened that it was taken during the time of Hazrat Abu Bakr. Then the people Ubulla, they attained their freedom, and it went away from the hands of Muslims. And then afterwards, it came to the hands of the Muslim during the time of Hazrat Umar. But the details of this battle, that after the end of the battle of Zat Salathil, then Hazrat Abu Bakr appointed Hazrat Musanna and to pursue the Persians. And with him, he sent Hazrat Maqal, and they were ordered to take prisoners of war. And then they went to Ubulla, and then they took many prisoners of war and a lot of bounties. And further details come regarding this battle, that it took place in the 14th year of Hijrah. And then Utbah, as he was being sent to Persia, he spent a lot of time in the way. And there were 500 men who were appointed to protect this place. And Utbah fought them and overcame them, and then he entered the city of Persia, and then he returned. And this struck fear in the hearts of the Persians. And then, as they sat, then most of them, they ran, and they took boats and crossed the river, and then the Muslims, they overtook their area, and they took a lot of wealth, and they distributed the bounty within the Muslims, and of course the numbers of the Muslims who were in the battle, they took a lot of wealth from that battle. There's also another battle known as Mazar, and this battle was fought in the 12th year of Hijrah. And Basar, it is a place which is about 4 days travel from Basra. And it was said that at the verge of the river, Hormuz said that everyone who will be defeated in this season. And Hormuz wrote to his king for support, and then the king sent him an army. But before it reached to Khazar, they had received information about the defeat which they received in the Battle of Salasil. And then they came to Karen. But as they were approaching, they said to each other that if you don't gather yourself and remain strong together, then you'll never have another opportunity like this. Now, the new army, which was coming from Iran and from Persia, they all consulted each other, and they said after the consultation that the battle must take place. And Karen was the head. And then they said, maybe God will help us, and then we may get victory after some time. Then Karen with his army, they camped in that place. And those who had run away in the Battle of Salasil, they all camped together and waited. Then Hazrat Musanna, Hazrat Ma'anna, receiving this message, they called upon Hazrat Khalid. And then after the win, of course, the fifth was given to Baitul Mal, and then the rest which was remaining was divided among the Muslims who took place in the battle after the victory. And after the victory, the glad tidings and the news was sent to Hazrat Abu Bakr in Medina, and then he was informed that the people who had escaped during Salasir, and even those who were ready to fight, they are gathering in a place called Karin. and we need to tackle this battle. And of course, after some time, at the place of Karin came for the fighting, and then Hazrat Khalid also advanced, and Ma'aqil bin Aisha also advanced for the battle, and then they started fighting another battle, and then Karin took the enemy before Hazrat Khalid and killed him, and then Hazrat Ashim and Adi. After these leaders were killed, then the enemy lost courage and they escaped. And then a large group of the Persians were killed. And then the rest were able to take boats and canoes and escaped. And Hazrat Khalid said that whatever wealth we take, whatever bounty is taken from the enemy, will be given to those Muslim army men who relatives who were killed in the battle, and those who played any role in that battle. And under the leadership of Nu'man, most of the bounty, the fifth of that, was taken to Medina. And it is said that if it wasn't because of the river which the enemy crossed in boats and canoes, if it wasn't that, many of the enemies would have been killed. And according to who took place, and those who supported the Persians, and most of their relatives were arrested, and Hassan Basri was among the captives. And he was the father of Basri, who is Hassan Basri, who is most known in the Muslim history. But it is said that also he was freed after that. After this victory, the enemy were treated very nicely. The farmers, their crop, without hurting anyone, without even imposing any taxation upon them to pay jizya, they were left free. And above all, they were left to remain in their places, in their farms. Then Hazrat Umar ordered that all the captured areas, they should have some leaders. And Hazrat Abu Bakr organized the army in a much better way, and he appointed leaders as amirs and also commanders in different areas, and he ordered them to always remain alert to attack an enemy as soon as there is any advancement. And of course, as the Persians tried to advance, because the Muslims were already prepared, they had to face defeat. There was also another place which took the place of Port Hira, and which is between the Gulf and Persia. Of course, after the previous battle, Hazrat Khalid bin Walid was aware of the movements of the enemy. And then he was always aware about an advance towards the Muslims. So he remained prepared. There's another battle called as Walja. Walja is a dry place, and after the defeat of Mazar, where most of their leaders were killed, the king devised another way, and he had another plan and had a better preparation, and with this preparation they attacked the Muslims. And the Iranians, they called one of the tribe who were in Basra, and they wanted to form an army against the Muslims, to form an alliance. And Andar Zarghat was given the command, and they went to a place called Walja. And in Iraq, there was a big a big tribe called Aqil bin Wa'il. And of course, the king had prepared this tribe to fight the Muslims. When the people of Hira and Kassan, they also gathered along this army to fight against the Muslim. And Hira is a place which is in the southern part of Medina, of Basra rather. And of course, after the fight, the Christians were not happy. And of course, they also sent another battle against the enemy. And when they realized that they have a big army and they were prepared to fight, then Hazrat Khalid received the news. And then he was near Basra when this happened, and he felt it necessary, and he felt it better that they should attack the enemy from 3 positions so that they can disperse the enemy. And then after a sudden attack, then the enemies were overcome. And Suwaid bin Muqarran was also among the commanders, and Hafir. And the place called Hafir is where he was told to stay. And those who were the people in Dajla, he said they should all keep an eye on the enemy. And they were told that afterwards you should go to a place called Walja. And then eventually they arrived there, and the enemy also had got to that place, and there was a fierce battle that happened in that place. Hazrat Khalid bin Walid had commanded the army to attack in 3 positions. And as the attacks were happening from different positions, the Iranians their foot could not take hold, and then they fled the place. They were surrounded in such a way that they could not stand because they were being attacked from behind, from the sides as well. And then many were killed in this battle. Hazrat Khalid bin Walid treated the farmers as he was ordered by Hazrat Abu Bakr. He did not attack or kill those who did not involve themselves in the battle. And he invited the people to pay jizya, to pay taxation, and remain allies of the Muslims. And they accepted this. There was also another battle which took place called Olais. It took place in the 12th year of Hijrah, and this is also in Iraq. There was a tribe, Bakr bin Ail, and also another tribe which was from the Iranians with their tribes. They were against their head, and they wrote letters to their allies, and Hazrat Aswad Ijli was appointed as their leader. And they wrote to Jazwe that take your army and go to Ulais and meet those who are there. But Bawan Jazwe did not go until he appointed someone else who was Jaban. And he gave them the command that you should collect the army, but don't start the fight until I come, or unless they attack you. And then Jaban went to Lais. Then Jazwe and Hatashir, who was the king, he went to him and to take counsel with him, but he found him sick. And then Bawan Jazwe started to treat the king, and then Jaban did not receive any news. And then Jaban started fighting alone, and he got to the place called Lais. The Arabs and the Christians who were allies to the Muslims, they came to this place. And when they received the news of the enemy, they did not even realize that even Jaban has come close. And Hazrat Khalid had come to fight the Christians and those who were attacking the Muslims. But when Jaban arrived at that place, then the people asked him that, what's your opinion? Should we take food first or we fight and eat afterwards? And then Jaban said that if the enemy doesn't attack you, remain silent. But I'm afraid they might attack you suddenly and you may not even get the chance to eat. But these people did not accept Jaban's opinion. And then they said, we must eat. And then they started arranging to have food. And then Hazrat Khalid also took his army and they camped near the enemy. And then Hazrat Khalid appointed some battles for the protection. And then he suddenly attacking and said, where is Abjal Aswad? Where is Qais? And they all, because of this sudden advance of the Muslims, they remained silent. And then Hazrat Khalid said, do you think you have any power to attack me or to attack my army? And before they could not even have anything to eat, the Muslim attacked. And then Jaban said, didn't I tell you that don't start eating, don't engage in food? And then they had to face a sudden defeat. They could not even eat. And then they said that now, let's now leave food and then fight the Muslims. And then Jaban, in response, he said that the food which you have laid is now for the enemy. Don't think you can fight and then come back and eat this food. This will be for the Muslims because you don't know. Now, I want to tell you once again, and I request you to accept my suggestion. You should mix some poison in the food. Don't poison all the food, poison some. If you face defeat, the Muslims will be killed by eating the food which is poisoned. And they said, no, we don't have to. We don't have to mix poison in the food. We shall win. Then Hazrat Khalid prepared this army, and the format was that which he used to use previously. And of course, the Muslims were strong because they were aware of the strong army which was about to attack. And of course, because one of their commander could not leave the king and Jaban could not communicate with the army who were in the field, then when the battle started, the Muslims had an upper hand because there was no central command for the enemy and the Muslims were well prepared. And one of the historians writes about this, and he says it was the Iranians who attacked and Qais was killed, who was their leader. And then when Jaban saw this, he tried to attack. And then the Muslims continuously attacked. And eventually, Hazrat Khalid bin Walid raised his hands And he said, "O Allah, if you give me victory upon my enemy, I won't leave any of the enemies to cross the river." And Hazrat Khalid has said, and then he vowed before Allah that if I win in this army, I will never leave the enemy alive. And after that, Hazrat Khalid organized the army and then ordered them to attack the Iranians. And then the Iranians, they had scattered. And then they felt that it would be better for them to lay their arms. And then Hazrat Khalid ordered the Muslims to capture them, those who had surrendered. And he said, you should only fight and kill those who are fighting you. I've also seen myself, though the Tabri and all other historians are of the same opinion like mine, that the vow of Sayyid Khalid he took captives and because some of the enemies were killed according to Hazrat Khalid's vow, and their blood was poured in the river, it is known as the Red River. But to me, this is not correct. And the historians have taken some exaggerations with this. And maybe it could be even some people who are trying to distort the history to show that the Muslims were also barbaric in their attacks, to suggest that they killed the enemy and they poured their blood in the river. And of course, anybody who is against the Muslims, they would write such things, that those who are captured, they were killed and their blood was poured in the river. Poured in the river. And of course, this is to show that the Muslims, they are brutal. Otherwise, in reality, there is no way you can point a finger in the rules of engagements for the Muslims who fought during the time of the Holy Prophet and even after the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There is no proof that the enemy was captured and killed in this way. And of course, when we find, of course, we do find that people were killed, the enemies were killed, but only those who are combatant, those who are fighting the Muslims. But anyone who surrendered was spared and was not killed. Though the historians, they try to make exaggerations and say that the Muslims killed everyone, the fact remains that if we look at the facts of this incident, there are also some exaggerations and some interpolation of what exactly happened, because the historians, when they take the details and they want to take every greatest detail of what took place, some of them, they do not even mention this totally, which proves that the exaggerations, in order to show that the Muslims are barbaric in nature, this is a battle, this is an incident which shows the true Muslims and how they behaved in the battlefield. And of course, we find that Hazrat Khalid did not mete out to the enemy all the anger for the previous happenings. Rather, the writers write and mention this incident, and though the fact is that no enemy was killed and their bodies thrown in the river. And of course, the Iranian army was very big, and they had surrounded the Muslims, and the condition was that the Muslims, they were surrounded by the enemy, and then they had to fight very fiercely. And now the Muslims, seeing no escape, they had to fight for their lives. And of course, during this fierce battle, any Muslim who was injured would not fall down, or rather would continue to fight. And the enemies were being killed left, right, and center. And the Muslims, they were fighting so much that most of them, they were dripping in blood. And there was bloodshed everywhere. And of course, the Euphrates River was covered in blood too, because of the people who were falling in that river trying to escape. And it is said that 1,000 enemy, an army of about 1,000 men from the Persians, they fell into the river. And the historians, when covering this, they do cover the number of the Persians who were killed, and they put it to 1,000. But it is very clear that if we take it to be true that the river became red, was simply because of those enemies who were wounded and then fell in the river. Some of them, they drowned, and maybe because of some exaggeration, they take it to be that the entire river became red and blood was poured in that river. But all what is being said in detail about this war, they're trying to paint a picture that Muslims were brutal in this battle. But all these are allegations and wrong claims. Nevertheless, when the enemy was defeated and they were scattered, then the Muslim returned home and then returned in their camp. And then they said, now, this is your food, it's for you. And the Holy Prophet ﷺ, whenever he found food after defeating the enemy, he would distribute the food in the army who were around. And like I said, there were many people who were killed in this battle. There's another battle which is known as Amwisha, which took place without any Mughishah. It is a place in Iraq. And when Hazrat Khalid came from the Battle of Les, then he came to Amnisha with his army. But before arriving there, the people fled the area, and then they scattered in the place called Sawat. Those areas within Iraq, which were captured during the time of Hazrat Umar, they are known as Sawat. And then Amrisha is a place where the Muslim camped. And the Muslims received a lot of wealth and a lot of bounty, which they never received in battles like Salasil and other battles. It is put about to be over 115,000 dirhams, which was received in this in bounty. And then Hazrat Banu Jund, Hazrat Khalid sent the message to Hazrat Abu Bakr after the victory. And when the envoy came to Hazrat Abu Bakr, he gave him the news of victory of Qais and all the details that took place in the battle, and gave him all the details, and especially he was giving him the role of Hazrat Khalid, which he played in this battle. Then Hazrat Abu Bakr was also, after listening about the role that Hazrat Khalid played and how the Muslims fought the enemy and received the news. And when Hazrat Abu Bakr asked him that, what's your name? The way you narrated everything to me. Hazrat Abu Bakr gave him out of he gave a hand in marriage from one of the ladies who were captured. Of course, I'll be covering more details in my next sermon, inshallah.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر